Alright, welcome back. I'm going over the San Diego Vendor slash Expressive Activity Ordinance. This is a strikeout ordinance where they took the previous language and struck out things that they felt was harmful to the community or what have you, or that they felt needed to be amended to either protect buskers or to regulate us. Um, all right, I'm not going to go over this entire ordinance because there's a lot here, and some of it's not even applicable to expressive activities. I'm going to stick to what is applied to buskers and artists, or at least from my understanding of this new code. Um, the Ordinance Amendment, Chapter 3, Article 6, Division 1 of the San Diego Municipal Code by retitling and amending Section 36.0101 and amending Sections 360102, 360105, and so on and so forth. And it's about sidewalk vending, commercial activity, and expressive activities. You'll notice I have things highlighted. This is stuff that's important to us, or at least I think is important to us. 36.0101 Title and Purpose. Title: This division shall be known as Sidewalk Vending Regulations. Purpose and intent. It is the purpose and intent of this division to provide for the regulation of sidewalk vendors on public property pursuant to California Government Code Sections 51036 through 51039. The Council finds and declares that these regulations are directly related to the objective health, safety, and welfare concerns created by competing uses of sidewalks by residents, visitors, and sidewalk vendors. The council further finds and declares that the regulations on sidewalk vending in city parks, beach areas are necessary to ensure the public's use and enjoyment of natural resources and recreational opportunities that are necessary to prevent an undue concentration of commercial activity and unreasonably interferes with the scenic and natural character of the parks and beach areas. Definitions. This is 36.0102. If you would like to read these, you can find this strikeout ordinance in the San Diego Buskers and Artists page under the Files sections. It'll be a PDF. Anyways, under definitions, for purposes of this division, define terms and appear in italics. The following definitions apply. And I'm just going to skip through all this and go straight to activities. So it talks about services right here, which are activities involving the performance of work for others or the provision of intangible items directly to a person or group of people at the same time. They cannot be returned once they are provided. Examples include hair, styling, massage, yoga, and exercise. Originally, face painting, fortune telling, henna tattooing, braiding, things of that nature were in this. Braiding would be like making stuff out of palm leaves and stuff too. Um, so it's good that they crossed those words out because those actually would be expressive activities. Um, Sidewalk vendor means a person who sells goods or provides services for vending equipment or from one person upon the sidewalk. It includes both roaming sidewalk vendors and stationary sidewalk vendors. Stationary sidewalk vendors, through some memorandum, there will be no change in text. I don't really see it necessary to um, go over all this stuff about what vending is and who's a vendor and all that because that's not really important to buskers and artists and stuff like that. We're going to skip over a lot of this sidewalk vending stuff, kind of scroll down it to the busker stuff. All this that I'm passing through is non-applicable to buskers and artists. Now we're moving down to section that talks about us again. This is 360113, and this is non-applicability. The following persons, entities, and activities are exempt from the requirements of this division. Originally, it used to say any vendor or an individual. Now it says any person engaged in expressive activities authorized by Chapter 6, Article 3, Division 5 of this code. Originally, though, it said any vendor or individual engaged solely in artistic performances, free speech, political or petitioning activities, or engaged solely in vending these items constituted as an expressive activities are protected by the First Amendment. And then they struck all that out and says expressive activity authorized by Chapter 6, Article 3. So it gives you a place to go to read what they consider expressive activities. And then any person engaged in commercial activity or providing services in the parks authorized by Section 63.0102B14. And then any leasee or permittee of the city vending and city-owned property where the vending is authorized under the city lease or permit. So there's three ways you can do it, but mostly it's about being expressive activities. All right, so 540105, sidewalk sales and displays prohibited. A, except as provided in Section 540105B and C, it is unlawful for any person to place, allow, remain any goods, wares, baggage, personal property, or merchandise on sidewalk curb between the outer edge of the sidewalk or curb and the property line. This does not prohibit any person from loading or unloading goods, wares, and merchandise in front of the person's place of business. Prohibit any person from leaving any good wares, merchandise, on sidewalk for length of time necessary for unloading and loading items. Prevent any person from loading or unloading attended baggage or personal property into a form of means of transportation, or prohibit sidewalk vending authorized Section Chapter 3, Article 6, Division 1. Then this is about sales from vehicles. Fortune telling, etc., advertising prohibited. This has been struck out. This was something that I brought up to them that is a violation of religious and ideology messages. So they struck all this out. They struck out some exceptions about religions. Where this accepted religions from doing certain things, which I find interesting. Then stuff about sales or rentals, use of public parks and lands. Expressive activity has the same meaning as San Diego Municipal Code, Section 630502. We still haven't got there, I do not believe. Alright, sale of merchandise. Except for those sales that are protected by the First Amendment was the original language. Now it says except expressive activity authorized by Chapter 6, Article 3, Division 5 of this code in sidewalk vending. It is unlawful to sell or offer any goods, wares, or merchandise article or thing whatsoever without the written consent of the city manager. Commercial activities and service except expressive activity authorized by Chapter 6, Article 3 is not authorized. Shows except expressive activity authorized by Chapter 6, Article 3 is unlawful to set up, maintain, or give any exhibit, show, or performance, lecture, concert, or place of amusement or hall without written consent of the city manager. 18. Direction from a park ranger. It is unlawful for any person to refuse or follow or comply with any lawful order, signal, or other direction of a park ranger or knowingly provide false information to a park ranger. This one's pretty concerning. This one gives park rangers a lot of power, and so we know an order is unlawful, but they think an order is lawful. Who decides what is and what is not a lawful order? The park rangers decide. That's who. That is what you need to know. They're going to decide. They're going to cite you. They will detain you. You will have to go to court, and then you will have to prove in court that it was an unlawful order. That is pretty much the only way that's going to go. So get used to that. That is this new law. Division 5, Expressive Activity on Public Property. 63.0501, Findings and Purposes. The council finds the city is committed to protecting and preserving the rights of persons engaged in expressive activity on public property, as protected by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution and by the California Constitution. City parks, plazas, and sidewalks have served as traditional forum for performances, visual artists, and other expressive activity. Unregulated expressive activity has led to challenges for first responders to access emergency situations and has intensified competing interest in available space and has increased the incidence of physical altercations among sidewalk vendors and persons engaged in expressive activity. Unregulated expressive activity has also limited the accessibility of common walkways and the safe flow of pedestrian and other traffic in some areas. The council further finds that certain parks and plazas in high traffic areas constitute major tourist attractions, host significant numbers of people annually, and contain limited geographic space. Visitors, tourists, sidewalk vendors, and people engaged in expressive activity compete for space in these locations. The council finds that authorizing the city manager to designate areas for persons engaged in expressive activity using equipment or furniture in certain parks, plazas, and high traffic areas will reduce tension and physical altercations associated with competing for limited space and will ensure those engaged in expressive activities are able to engage in their intended audience without having to compete with commercial vendors. Additionally, the ability to designate expressive activity areas in certain parks, plazas, and high traffic areas where daily visitation is significant and where the proliferation of commercial activity potentially interferes with historic and cultural opportunities and preservation activities is necessary to protect and preserve the areas for everyone. The council further finds it's necessary to adopt reasonable regulations on expressive activities to address the competing interests and uses of public property, including parks, plazas, sidewalks, and high traffic areas, with the city's need to preserve public health and safety and preserve access to enjoyment of public property. It is the purpose of this division to adopt regulations for persons engaged in expressive activity to protect public health and safety, preserve historic and cultural opportunities, and prevent altercations arising from competing uses of space in parks, plazas, sidewalks, and high traffic areas. This division does not apply to sidewalk vendors. Definitions, and then it goes into what definitions are. Expressive activity means all forms of speech and expressive conduct, including the distribution of non-commercial information, solicitations of funds, donations, subscriptions, or signatures for charity, religious organizations, nonprofit organization, or government entity. Performances. The sale of artwork, recording of performances, or other items that are inherently communicative in nature and have only nominal value of purpose apart from its communication. Items that are inherently communicative in nature include newspapers, leaflets, pamphlet, bumpers, stickers, buttons, books, audio, video, compact disc, video disc, recordings, visual art sold by the artist, including prints of the artist's visual art, political campaigning activities such as the distribution of campaign signs, stickers, and other campaign materials, face painting, and painting henna tattoos. Expressive activity does not include the sale of food, or the sale of creation of handcrafts, skincare, or beauty products, the sale of natural found items such as stones and gems, the provisions of personal services such as massage or hairstyling, the application of substances or handcrafts to others such as piercings or skin care products, teaching yoga or exercise classes, or the creation or sale of mass-produced merchandise or visual art. Expressive activity area means areas within the parks, plazas, and high-traffic areas designated by the city manager pursuant to 650504 of this code. Now, the expressive activity area is the public forum. These words, the expressive activity area means blah, blah, blah. This is highly illegal. It poses a prior restraint to free speech, saying that you can only have free speech of this type in this place. That is unconstitutional. I will show later on when I do the Berger versus Seattle exactly where and how it's unconstitutional, so keep a lookout for that video. I intend to finish this either tonight or sometime this week. Anyways, that right there, that code really, really kind of burns me. The handcrafting should be a little bit more clear, because some handcrafts are considered artistic if you make it yourself, whereas if you buy some handcrafts from a wholesale place, that would be vending. So they need to clarify that. That's very important. Here, this is their version though. Handcraft means objects made either by hand or with the help of devices used to shape or produce these objects through such methods as weaving, carving, stitching, sewing, lacing, welding, or beading, including necklaces, earrings, bracelets, rings, or other jewelry used for the intended for personal adornment, pottery, silver or metalwork, leather goods, and trinkets. Handcrafts are objects not likely to communicate a message, idea, or concept to others, and are often mass produced with limited variation and often have functional utility apart from any communicative value they might have. I think they're really going to get some shit over this language right here. I'm pretty sure there's a case file or two out there that will totally shut this down. But that is the language that they have in this new city code, and it means exactly what it says it means. Which means they kind of went back on what they said about mom and pop crafters and vendors would not have to worry about these regulations. This sounds like they have a lot to worry about. So I'm going to read what high traffic areas are. High traffic areas means the following bike and shared use path: Bade Sidewalk, Bayshore Bikeway, Coast Boulevard Boardwalk between Jenner Street and Culver Street, including pop-outs, Crown Point Bike Point, La Jolla Shores, Boardwalk Liberty Station, NTC Path, Mission Bay Bike Path, MLK Promenade, Ocean Boulevard Bike Path, Ocean Beach Bike Path, Oceanfront Walk, San Diego River Bike Path, San Diego Scripps Boardwalk, which runs along the perimeter of Ellen Browning Scripps Park, and the following sidewalks: Columbia Street, Kettner Boulevard, India Street, between Ash and West Calma Street, and San Diego Avenue between Condo Street and Twig Street. So basically, all the areas that buskers go, they're calling high traffic areas now, and they're really trying to keep people who are busking down to a minimal in those areas. I really don't like the language here. I think that this is bad, but it is what it is, and we got to push for change. Visual art means sculptures, drawings, or paintings applied to paper, cardboard, canvas, or other similar equivalent medium through the use of brush, pastel, crayon, pencil, stylus, or other object. Expressive activity generally. Applicability. The division applies to persons engaged in expressive activity alone or in small groups. It does not apply to spontaneous expressive activity by large groups such as parades and protests or permitted events. So the rules of expressive activity should be applicable to all expressive activity, not just one or two. That would make the content neutrality of this invalid. B. Any person engaged in expressive activity shall not occupy a space greater than 8 feet in length or 4 feet in width, including any equipment or display, unless the person is in expressive activity where a larger space has been set aside for expressive activity by the city manager. Well, I hope they set up larger spaces, because these sizes just will hurt a lot of artists and photographers and people that have larger displays and need larger displays to draw people in. It could also hurt certain magicians or other performers that need larger space to do their performances. I think this would also hurt some religious groups who use larger spaces and political groups. So I don't know how well this is going to work out for them. Number 2 of that: display any merchandise for sale on the ground or above any ground structure. So a poor busker who can't afford a table or something like that just can't lay their art on the ground. They're going to get a ticket if they do. I don't think that that's going to fly, because homeless people lay their stuff all over the ground and no one says anything about that. And there are laws against saying stuff about that. So I'm pretty sure saying stuff about that with artists would also be considered a unconstitutional law. Again, we'll have to challenge that later on or get that worked on. Conduct expressive activity in a way that blocks the safe flow of pedestrians or other traffic, that blocks designated emergency ingress or egress routes, including blocking the sidewalk in a manner that reduces the usable sidewalk area to less than 48 inches, or attach any equipment, display, or merchandise to a utility pole, street sign, bus stop, trash can, traffic pole, or public structure. There's that 48 inches again. That is 4 feet. So as long as you're leaving 4 feet of room on the sidewalk for people or other things to get by, you are not in violation of this law. All persons engaged in expressive activity using the amplification or non-amplifying sound-making devices such as speakers, microphones, or public address systems shall comply with Section 59.50502F of this code at all times, unless the person is in an expressive activity area where louder amplification has been authorized for expressive activity by the city manager. Expressive activity areas. The city manager may designate expressive activity areas that shall be available on first-come, first-served basis to persons who desire to use equipment, including table, easel, stand, chair, umbrella, sunshade, or other furniture as part of their expressive activity. Expressive activity areas may be established within a park, plaza, or other high-traffic area when the city manager determines one or more following true. Substantial interest is designating expressive activity areas to provide for safe ingress and egress of people, emergency and public safety vehicles, and personnel based on the existing paths of travel and emergency and public safety access routes within a specific area of the park, plaza, and high traffic area. The capacity of a park and plaza high traffic areas at the daily visitation rates are likely to create a significant congestion of roads and walkways such as paths of travel are likely to be impassable or unsafe. The naturally developed landscape could be damaged as a result of the continual use of expressive activity if not contained to specific areas in parks and plazas or high traffic areas. There's a substantial interest in designated expressive activity areas adjacent to events occurring in a park, plaza, or high traffic area, including private events and special events permitted pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 40 of this code when the city manager determines expressive activities are necessary to provide for safe ingress and egress of persons use emergency vehicle routes around the event. If the city manager designates expressive activities in an area within a park, plaza, high traffic area, all persons engaged in expressive activity who use equipment and table, easel, sound, chair, sunshade, or other furniture as part of their activity shall confine their activities to one of the expressive activity areas. Expressive activity areas shall be reserved for expressive activity only. No person shall engage in sidewalk vending regulated by Article 6, Division 1, or sell any food, handcraft, or mass-produced visual art that does not constitute expressive activity within an expressive activity area. So this kind of protects buskers and artists from oversaturation of vendors, which has been a major problem for buskers and artists. All the spaces that we have once worked were taken away because of the oversaturation of vendors, and this should protect from that. But we're going back to expressive activity areas, which they've already said at the beginning of all this that the public forum is the expressive activity area. So I don't think they really get how they're contradicting themselves here and how their own contradictions could hurt their law and get it shot down in a court. A person may only use one expressive activity at a given time. No person shall purchase, sell, barter, or exchange any space within an expressive activity area with another person, reserve or hold space within an expressive activity area for another person. Any person who fails to comply with this section 63.0504 may be asked to leave the expressive activity area and may be subject to penalties and fines in section 630506. Services and sales of handcrafts and mass-produced visual art 63.0505. Vendors of handcrafts and mass-produced visual art and vendors of services shall comply with sidewalk vending regulations in Chapter 3, Article 6, Division 1 for For all vending activities in parks, plazas, beach areas, and sidewalks that are not otherwise authorized by special event permit, lease, or other advance written approval by the city manager. 630506. Penalties and fines. A. Any violation of this division shall be subject to the following. 1. Administrative citation of $100 penalty for first violation. Administrative citation and $200 penalty for second violation with 1 year of first violation. 3. Administrative citation and $500 penalty for each subsequent violation with a 1 year of the first violation. Administrative citations may be appealed pursuant to Chapter 1, Article 2, Division 5 of this code, and all appeals shall be conducted in accordance of Chapter 1, Article 2, Division 4. And then it talks about how the powers that be give the power to reduce the fine to 20% of the administrative fine imposed pursuant to this division if you're incapable of paying fines. So if you're poor, you're on food stamps, something like that, if your fine's $500, 20% of $500 is, I'm not sure what 20% of 500 is, but 20 of 100 is $20. So I would say it'd probably be $100 if it's 20% of $500. That would be your third fine. But yeah, this is the new code. If you have any questions about this stuff and want me to go over certain sections, or you want to understand it better, just write me on the Buskers page or in the comment sections here on YouTube, and I'll do my best to answer these questions. Some of the answers will be, in this case, Burger versus City of Seattle, which I plan on doing in my next video. Thank you for watching. This has been an explanation of the new city code ordinance that have been passed through lobbying of buskers and artists to protect buskers and artists, as well as apparently regulate us for reasons of safety and other such things. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this explanation, and I look forward to doing the next one.